Imagine a town that once echoed with footsteps, storefronts humming, families walking home at dusk. The diner closed, the school boarded up, the sound of footsteps replaced by the wind. Now imagine it silent. Closed shops, overgrown sidewalks, shuttered homes. That image feels like something from the 19th century mining boom, right? But according to a 2025 report from the U.S. Economic Research Service, ghost town dynamics aren't just history. They're happening right now across America. Across the country, hundreds of once thriving communities are fading away. Not from gold rush collapse, but from economic stagnation, aging populations, and migration shifts. And here's what's eerie. These places were built to last. When most people hear ghost town, they think gold rush, silver mines, maybe a dusty saloon. And yes, there's plenty of that. Towns like Atchee, Colorado, once alive with mining and rail activity, now stand completely empty, their silence echoing through history, as documented in historical archives and local reports. But ghost towns today come in very different forms. According to a 2025 analysis by the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, America is now seeing a sharp rise in what experts call housing decline zones, regions where occupied homes are disappearing year after year. And when you break it down, there are four main kinds of modern ghost towns. First, old industrial or mining towns, where the main employer vanished, leaving behind empty mills, broken railways, and deserted streets. Second, rural towns, slowly losing people as younger generations move away and farming or local industry declines. Third, modern suburban developments, entire neighborhoods built on dreams of endless growth that never came. Based on a 2025 feature from the National Digest, some towns in Kansas now sell homes for the cost of a used car because the population has been cut nearly in half over the last century. And fourth, bypass towns, once bustling communities that were left behind when highways or trade routes shifted away. The key point? When the economic engine dies or moves away, the houses don't vanish. They stay behind, silent reminders of what used to be. According to the Lincoln Institute's 2025 housing occupancy study, dozens of rural counties across the U.S. have seen double-digit declines in occupied homes over the past decade. So let's take a closer look at what's actually driving this new wave of ghost towns, and then why some of them might be coming back. This isn't a story about the past. It's a glimpse into the future of American real estate. Let's explore what's really happening and why some of these ghost towns are coming back, but not how you think. Welcome to EstateScope, the channel where we expose the hidden forces shaping today's real estate markets. From climate risk to insurance pullouts to overlooked government policies, we break down what's really behind the headlines and what it means for your investments, your home, and your future. If you're into real estate with a twist of investigative reporting, hit like, tap subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss a story that could impact where you live, what you buy, or how you build. Now, let's get into what might be one of the most overlooked real estate catastrophes of the decade. There are several threads winding through this story, and together they explain why ghost towns aren't just history, but a growing part of America's present. First, economic shifts and industry decline. When a town is built around one industry, mining, timber, or railroads, it's vulnerable. Take Atchee, Colorado, for example. It was once a thriving company town for a rail-served mining operation. But when that rail line shut down, the town dwindled and eventually disappeared. A warning carved into the mountainside of history. Wikipedia. The same pattern is repeating in rural parts of America today. According to the National Digest, farming towns across Kansas and the Midwest have lost much of their agricultural viability, leading to steep population declines and abandoned homes. Some counties now have more empty properties than occupied ones. Second, demographics and migration. According to a Richmond Federal Reserve report from early 2025, rural counties are losing their working-age populations while retirees remain. Entire regions are aging out. Classrooms are shrinking, while nursing homes fill up. And based on this April 2025 study from the University of Illinois Farm Doc Daily, farming-dependent counties across the Midwest lost about 0.1% of their population every year between 2022 and 2024. That might sound small, but over time, it means shuttered schools, fewer local businesses, and shrinking property values. Meanwhile, young adults continue to migrate to metro areas for education, better pay, and lifestyle, leaving small towns older, poorer, and emptier. A Scientific American analysis even warned that tens of thousands of U.S. cities could face major population declines by 2100 if these trends continue. And it's not just rural America. According to data from the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, even suburban and exurban ZIP codes are showing early signs of decline, where homes still stand, but fewer people live in them. Third, overbuilding and failed projects. Developers once bet big on perpetual growth. Entire suburban subdivisions were built on optimism, not demand. But according to loveproperty.com, many of those neighborhoods have become modern ghost towns, with vacant streets, unfinished lots, and streetlights that never turned on. Fourth, infrastructure and shifting transport routes. When highways bypass a town or rail lines close, the economy doesn't just slow, it vanishes. Once busy pit stops and small business hubs along historic routes are now shells of their former selves. Later in this video, we'll look at a few that are trying to come back through tourism, but most never recover. Fifth, housing and affordability mismatch. In some areas, the houses are still standing, but the economy to support them is gone. Based on another National Digest report, some Kansas towns now have homes priced between $50,000 and $85,000, not because of affordability success, but because residents are aging out, their children have left, and demand has evaporated. And even in active markets, the numbers show just how fragile things have become. According to Zillow's 2025 housing data, the average U.S. home value is $363,932, up just 0.1% from last year. But some metros, especially across the South and West, are seeing double-digit price declines, reflecting how uneven the recovery really is. So when you put it all together, industry collapse, migration loss, overbuilding, bypassed infrastructure, and shrinking affordability, a clear pattern emerges. When the engines stop, the houses stay. The infrastructure lingers. The tax base shrinks. Schools close. And one by one, the lights go out. That's how modern ghost towns are born. But here's the twist. Not every ghost town is gone for good. Some are quietly reinventing themselves. According to a 2025 Governing.com report, rural counties across America have now seen 4 straight years of population growth. Not from births, but from people moving in. Between 2023 and 2024 alone, non-metro areas lost roughly 104,000 residents naturally, but gained over 240,000 through migration. And based on a University of Virginia study released in early 2025, nearly 2/3 of all new growth among 25 to 44-year-olds is now happening in smaller metros and rural regions. That means younger families are leaving crowded cities for cheaper, quieter lives, sometimes even in places once labeled dead. But let's be clear, these revivals aren't uniform. Many depend on tourism, remote work, or creative reuse. They're messy, uneven, and far from guaranteed. Here's what's really happening on the ground. First, tourism and heritage value. Take Newberry Springs, California, along the historic Route 66. According to The Guardian, this town, once a near-abandoned desert stop, is preparing for the 100th anniversary of Route 66 in 2026, betting that nostalgia and tourism will spark a revival. Across the country, ghost towns are becoming Instagram-friendly, history-rich destinations. Old saloons, neon motels, and rusted gas stations have turned into backdrops for photos, festivals, and weekend road trips. It's not an industrial comeback, it's cultural. Second, land affordability and the second home market. In rural Kansas and similar regions, ultra-cheap property prices are attracting new buyers. The National Digest reports that some homes are selling for under $90,000, drawing in remote workers, retirees, and families seeking low-cost land or hobby farms. But here's the catch. Cheap housing doesn't mean a stable economy. Jobs remain scarce. Services are limited. You can buy the land, but not necessarily the livelihood. Third, remote work and lifestyle shifts. The post-pandemic years reshaped where Americans can live. For a moment, remote work made small towns look like the future. Some states even offered relocation incentives. But as the Wall Street Journal reported, many of those early gains have faded. In Vermont, for instance, the remote work influx slowed. And by 2025, the state had reverted to net outmigration. So, yes, remote work opened new doors, but it didn't fix weak infrastructure or limited job bases. The foundation still matters. Fourth, creative reuse and regeneration. In Colorado, according to Condé Nast Traveler, abandoned mining towns are being transformed into artistic retreats, boutique lodges, and off-grid escapes. Elsewhere, ghost towns are marketed as filming locations or converted into luxury adventure getaways. These aren't traditional real estate revivals. They're niche, experiential, and often high-end. A few investors turn a forgotten place into something exclusive, but that doesn't always translate to local prosperity. Finally, risk and caution. Just because a town is for sale doesn't mean it's viable. Some ghost towns exist in unincorporated areas with no local government, no public services, and complicated land laws. A 2025 post from EZ Home Search warned, research county zoning before buying a ghost town because ownership doesn't guarantee infrastructure. And that's the truth. A low sticker price doesn't make it a good investment if the economy around it hasn't turned. So yes, ghost towns are coming back in some ways, but not through factories or population booms. They're coming back through heritage, tourism, creativity, and reinvention. Patchworks of revival stitched together by nostalgia and opportunity. It's a comeback, just not the kind anyone expected. So what does all of this actually mean for the 2025 housing market? And for everyday Americans trying to navigate it? According to JP Morgan's 2025 Real Estate Outlook, nationwide housing growth is expected to stay under 3% this year, one of the slowest climbs in the last decade. At the same time, a CBRE mid-year report shows that prime property vacancies have climbed to 14.5%, with even higher rates in non-prime areas. In plain terms, there are more empty buildings, and fewer people to fill them. For homeowners and investors, that's a flashing red light. When population declines, demand collapses. And that's how you get stranded assets. Houses that no one wants. Neighborhoods that no longer grow. For local governments, it's even tougher. Every time a family leaves, tax revenue drops. But the cost of maintaining infrastructure stays the same. Same number of roads. Same water systems. Same schools. Just fewer taxpayers to pay for them. That imbalance slowly bleeds communities dry. The true definition of a living ghost town. And for the broader housing market, the message is clear. As major metro areas remain unaffordable, migration is splitting the country into two extremes. Places booming and places hollowing out. That divide is reshaping American real estate. Let's break that down. First, housing affordability and migration flows. As the cost of living in big cities continues to rise, people are either moving outward or giving up on home ownership altogether. Meanwhile, smaller towns that can't attract new residents are falling behind, creating an uneven map where some zip codes surge in value while others quietly fade. Second, the risk of stranded assets. Homes in regions losing population are likely to lose value faster. If you're an investor, a buyer, or someone working in real estate or finance, this isn't just a statistic. It's a risk signal. A house that looks cheap on paper could be sitting in a town that's already dying economically. Third, infrastructure and policy strain. When residents leave, local budgets shrink. Schools merge, public services disappear, and roads go unrepaired. According to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, many suburban ZIP codes, not just rural ones, are already showing double-digit declines in occupied housing. That means the ghost town effect is creeping closer to the suburbs than most people realize. Fourth, suburban and exurban risk. It's not just forgotten farm towns anymore. Outer ring suburbs, built on the assumption of endless commuting and population growth, are starting to show cracks. Fewer families moving in, higher vacancies, slower construction. These areas were once safe bets for developers. Now they're question marks. Finally, the bigger picture. For content creators, homeowners, and anyone tracking housing and policy, this story opens up a bigger conversation. Where are the modern ghost town dynamics showing up in your state, your region, your market? What happens when subdivisions outside DC or Northern Virginia, places built for expansion, start to empty instead? Because this isn't just a rural story, it's an American story. About how fast the balance between growth and decline can flip. And in 2025, that line between a booming town and a ghost town is thinner than ever. Let's look at 3 real examples from 2025 reports. 3 towns that show exactly how America's ghost town story plays out in real life. Case 1. Kansas farm towns. According to FarmDoc Daily and the National Digest, population loss continues across central and eastern Kansas, where home prices have dropped to between $50,000 and $85,000. These are towns that once thrived on agriculture. But as farming yields fell and industries left, the population collapsed. In some places, it's been cut nearly in half since the 1930s. Today, you can buy a house for the price of a used car, but you'd be buying into a fading economy. Schools have merged, storefronts are empty, and what's left is the shell of a community that once fueled America's breadbasket. It's textbook ghost town dynamics. The people leave, the houses stay. Case 2. Newberry Springs, California. This desert town sits along the legendary U.S. Route 66, a highway that once symbolized the freedom of American travel. But when the new Interstate 40 bypassed Newberry Springs, everything changed. Traffic vanished. Businesses closed. The town's economy dried up. Now, as reported by The Guardian in July 2025, locals are pinning their hopes on the 100th anniversary of Route 66, coming in 2026. They're betting that nostalgia, the lure of vintage motels and dusty diners, can bring tourists and maybe money back to town. It's a comeback driven not by industry, but by memory. And while that spark of revival is real, it's fragile. One wrong turn on the economic map, and the lights could go out again. Case 3. Amenity migration in Colorado and Montana. In some parts of the Mountain West, the story looks very different. A 2025 Cooper Center for Public Service report found that younger adults, especially those aged 25 to 44, are moving to scenic small towns in Colorado and Montana, not for jobs, but for quality of life. These places offer beauty, space, and a slower pace, drawing in remote workers and creative professionals. But the catch? Many of these communities only thrive seasonally. Winter tourism fades. Remote workers leave. And what's left are seasonal shells. Lively in summer, quiet the rest of the year. It's revival on the surface, not always in the foundation. Bonus example: modern suburban ghost developments. This isn't just a rural issue. Across the country, some modern subdivisions built on optimistic growth forecasts are sitting half empty. According to loveproperty.com, there are entire neighborhoods described as modern ghost towns where no one lives. Projects that broke ground, but never built momentum. Streetlights, sidewalks, even playgrounds, all waiting for families who never arrived. All four examples tell the same story in different forms. The economy rises, then declines. Population follows. And what remains is a strange kind of in-between. Half hope, half abandonment. They're not ghost stories. They're warnings. Real reminders of how uneven America's real estate recovery has become. Ghost towns have always been mirrors. They show us how fast progress can fade. Let's go back to 1879. The Sierra Nevada mountains in California were alive with noise. The clang of picks, the roar of steam engines, the promise of gold beneath the ground. That year, a town called Bodie hit its peak. Nearly 10,000 people lived there. Miners, blacksmiths, saloon keepers, and families chasing a dream. There were churches, schools, a newspaper, even an opera house. And according to historical records, more than 60 saloons lined Main Street. But just one decade later, the gold veins thinned. The money left. The rail lines stopped. By 1915, the population had fallen below 1,000. By 1940, only a handful of caretakers remained. Today, Bodie is preserved in what the Park Service calls arrested decay. Dishes still sit on tables. Dust-covered Bibles rest beside cracked windows. It's as if the town simply stopped breathing. But Bodie isn't just a story about miners. It's also a story about the workers' history almost forgot. When the mines boomed, Chinese immigrants, more than 10,000 across California and Nevada, built the railroads and dug the tunnels that made towns like Bodie possible. They laid track across the Sierra Nevada under brutal conditions, temperatures below freezing, explosives shaking the mountains beneath their feet. They lived in makeshift camps, often paid less than half the wages of white laborers. And when the lines were complete, many of them stayed behind, opening laundries, shops, and temples in small frontier towns. In 1870, the U.S. Census counted over 63,000 Chinese immigrants in California, most living along the rail lines and mining routes. But as economic panic and discrimination rose, their settlements were burned, abandoned, or erased from maps. Those communities became some of America's first ghost towns, not because they failed economically, but because they were pushed out of history. Walk through those remains today. The stone foundations near Donner Summit, the forgotten Joss houses in Nevada City. And you can almost hear them. The sound of steel hammers striking granite, the whisper of wind through the trestles they built. It's a quiet kind of remembrance, one America rarely tells. Now fast forward to 2025. We're still building and leaving behind, only in different ways. Where Bodie once stood for the boom and bust of gold, today it's small towns in Kansas, Ohio, and West Virginia that rise and fall with their own industries: farming, coal, manufacturing. Instead of mines running dry, it's jobs, population, and opportunity. Different century, same story. Back then, people left for gold. Today, they leave for rent they can afford. And just like Bodie, we leave towns behind in silence. Schools boarded up, storefronts dark, mailboxes rusting on empty streets. We measure decline now with data. a 14.5% vacancy rate reported by CBRE, under 3% growth nationwide, according to J.P. Morgan. Counties across the Midwest losing 0.1% of their population each year. But behind every number, there's still a story. Just like there was in 1879. Because history doesn't just echo, it repeats. It's the same rhythm that's always defined this country. Build, boom, abandon, rebuild. From the Chinese rail workers who carved the Transcontinental Railroad through granite in the 1860s, to the miners of Bodie chasing gold in 1879, to the families in Kansas and Ohio today watching their neighborhoods empty one by one, the pattern has never really changed. Every generation builds its version of the American dream, and every generation leaves behind something unfinished. The ghost towns of the past remind us that growth always comes with a cost, and that the places we forget often tell the most honest story about who we are. Because in the end, this isn't just about real estate. It's about memory, migration, and what it means to stay when everyone else moves on. Stay alert. Stay informed.
Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, comment, and share to help others stay informed. And don't forget to visit EstateScope on YouTube for the full video and more real estate insights.